Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Alex and Deus Talk About Football. And of course, the main topic of today is Manuel Neuer is coming back to play the World Cup for Die Mannschaft. And I guess, Alex, he's going to play starting in the lineup. And Baumann, well, that's another conversation.
Well, that's the big headline today in Germany. We had the last match day yesterday. The Bundesliga is over for this season, but Manuel Neuer dominating the headlines. We had 990 goals in the Bundesliga this season, of which Bayern scored 122 and Harry Kane scored 36. But it's all about Manuel Neuer. And the big question is it morally acceptable to suddenly drop Oliver Baumann? It's a real smack in the face. This is what a lot of people in Germany are saying. It's a real smack in the face for Oliver Baumann. It was okay for the qualifiers, and now because Manuel Neuer has put in some good performances in the Champions League, undoubtedly, but suddenly you wouldn't want to be in Oliver Baumann's shoes at the moment. And the question is, what do you think? Is it thinkable that Manuel Neuer could go to the World Cup as Germany's number 2 and Baumann remain number 1?
Now, that's impossible for me. I can even relate with Portugal. A few years ago, Cristiano Ronaldo almost asked for absence of the qualifying stage, and then he played the main tournament because he wanted to rest with some injuries, but he almost didn't play. That was the big concern. But of course, it's Cristiano Ronaldo, the biggest,
It's
the biggest
Cristiano
player,
Ronaldo.
the biggest player in Portuguese football in history, and Neuer, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper ever from Germany, which in the curriculum, in the history of German football, we have some big names, but unquestionably, for me, even the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the best I've ever seen, Manuel Neuer. But of course, and this is a thing that Nagelsmann would have to treat like, I would say, a manager, like a national coach, and not a club coach. I think Nagelsmann, in his head, he's still a coach, not a manager like normally we see in the national team. He's more like Mourinho and not a Vicente del Bosque. I think he would have to change the mindset because when you're the national manager or the national coach, you have 3-4 sessions to build up a team. In the club, you have 10 months, 11 months. You're working every day with a player. The national coach just gets the players, call them to training, and then start a World Cup. And the relationship with the players is different. So I don't know. Is Baumann dead for Nagelsmann, because it's difficult for Nagelsmann to say, okay, you've been my goalkeeper through the qualifying stage, but now I'm bringing back a guy that left the national team. That's the big
Exactly.
discussion here.
Neuer has said various times that he won't be part of the World Cup squad,
Yeah.
and then suddenly it is announced today that he is going to the US for the World Cup. Now, the announcement of the squad is planned, of Germany's World Cup squad, the announcement by Nagelsmann is planned for Tuesday. Now, the German Cup final is on Saturday between Bayern and Stuttgart, as we know. Now, shouldn't that announcement of the squad be made after the German Cup final? Could that not influence some players in Stuttgart's team or in Bayern's team if they are not mentioned, if they're not part of the Germany squad?
And you can look at this in another perspective. So if it's not official that Neuer is coming to the World Cup, who released, I would say, under the table, who spread the message to the social media, to the influencers, to journalists, saying, spread the message already to the panic when the national team, the 26 nominees are out, the panic will already be washed away. It's not going to be so surprising. So who said to the media, or who put the message out? Attention, Neuer is coming. He's coming back to the World Cup. We already talked with him. But even Nagelsmann, he, in a recent interview, I think with ZDF, a German channel, he didn't comment. Baumann, he was asked, Baumann or Neuer? He didn't comment. And no answer is answering. Neuer is going to be in the lineup, and Baumann, the new Ter Stegen in the national team.
He has to make a decision officially very soon, because goalkeeping is a very sensitive position, and it has a lot of influence on the rest of the squad, of the rest of the team. All this reminds me, now this goes back to 2006, we already had this in Germany once, the big argument, Lehmann or Oliver Kahn, two big goalkeepers 20 years ago, and it was in the end Lehmann who made the cut and who played for Germany, and Oliver Kahn was demoted to number two. Whether that was the right decision in hindsight is a different story. Antonio, let's talk about a little fairy tale, because we know who's coming up to the Bundesliga. Schalke, we knew that. The big Schalke, everybody happy that they'll be back in the Bundesliga. And then there's a very small club from the Saar in the western part of Germany. Their name is Elversberg, and they have actually been promoted for the very first time in their history. So congratulations to them. They're a tiny club, completely unknown, but my prediction is they'll go straight back again into Division 2. What do you say?
Yeah, I think the comparison with Union Berlin when they came up a little bit before the pandemic is going to be inevitable. At Union Berlin, what a performance. Coming for the first time to the Bundesliga, qualifying for Europa League, playing Champions League, and ended up in Festa High, a small club, a small stadium to 20,000 people in the stands. And this stadium is half of it, 10,000 people maximum. I think it's good for the traditional, for the football, Germany's football tradition. I think it's very good that these teams are still capable, able to promote to the Bundesliga, because for a lot of specialists, a lot of football analysts and experts, a lot of people believe and they choose the second division of the Bundesliga as the best and most competitive second division in Europe, way ahead of the championship, for example. I slightly agree, but in the championship in England, it's very competitive too, because but other reasons with the money, with the playoffs, etc. But a team like Elfsberg coming up, it demonstrates that money isn't everything. Like Wolfsburg, they have the money of Volkswagen, and they are playing the playoffs to not get relegated. That means a lot in
Yeah.
Bundesliga. That means a lot in German football.
Wolfsburg, of course, the club helped by the money of Volkswagen. They don't get
Not
as
enough.
much money, not as much money anymore as they used to, but they reached, and that is a success in its own, because they were, it looked as if they were gone, but under Dieter Hecking, they managed to make it into the playoffs, and they'd be playing Paderborn in a few days' time. That's one that we're going to keep an eye on. St. Pauli and Heidenheim, sadly, after a valiant fight, both relegated. But I think the quality wasn't enough there. Okay, let's
I
talk
agree. Yeah.
about something that's been making the headlines in Germany quite a lot. It is the teenager boom that we've had in the Bundesliga. We've had loads of teenagers coming through. I mean, everybody who follows German football knows Lennart Karl. He's probably one of the big names who've come through, but there are quite a few at Bayern Munich. Bayern have actually had 10 under 20 players used in the Bundesliga this season. I mean, this is Bayern. Now, of course, this has been helped by the fact that they weren't really challenged in the Bundesliga, and they could afford to use youngsters in their Bundesliga games. They also have a small squad, so sometimes they were even forced to, and quite a few good players there in the Bayern side. Wisdom Mike, a young German Nigerian, he's been on the bench and he's been coming on. Then they've got Bara Indayi, he's a young Senegalese player. He's made his way into the Bayern Munich side. So the Bundesliga, they can't afford the big bucks, the big money transfers, and that's why they've been concentrating on bringing youth players through, and I think that's very good. However, Ligue 1 in France, they lead the way in Europe. They have 104 under 20 players under the age of 20 that they've used this season. The Bundesliga have used 64 under 20 players, which is quite a lot. The Premier League, by the way, 54 players under 20. How do you see that development?
I would say, Alex, that's football heritage in Germany, and we both cover Bundesliga. I think the person that did this analysis, they just woke up now. They've been sleeping under a rock, because who is the Ballon d'Or? Osman Dembele. Where did he grow up for elite football? Borussia Dortmund, 17 years old when Dortmund then sold him to Barcelona for over 130 million. Allen, surprise everybody, Borussia Dortmund to Manchester City. Jude Bellingham, Jadon Sancho, Florian Wirtz, a lot of young kids, a lot of young players that absolutely rigged in football in Germany. Absolute valuable players, future Ballon d'Or contenders. Without talking about, of course, about Dembele and Haaland, who already should have won in 2023, breaking records in Premier League. When everybody said, he played in Dortmund, it's easier to score goals there. When he comes to England, he's gonna meet his real opponents. That didn't happen. That still doesn't happen today. And I think Bundesliga. I think it's not the fact that the clubs cannot buy the bigger players, because you see Bayern, they had 100 million to buy Harry Kane. Bayern had the money to buy Lucas Hernandez. They had the money to bring in Luis Diaz. But I think
Yes,
clubs
but
like Dortmund,
the Bayern bench, of course,
of
isn't
course,
as
yeah,
strong.
of course,
That's the big problem, and that's
true, true.
a lot of critics have been pointing to the fact that that's why they were knocked out in the end against Paris Saint-Germain, because they couldn't bring on star players from the bench. The Bayern bench weak, so Bayern too have their financial limits. That I
But
think is something we
that
mustn't
Alex.
forget.
And we must not forget, like Uli Hoeneß said a few months ago about Bayern and Barcelona. The difference between Bayern and Barcelona is that we have money, and because of the big spendings, big contracts of Barcelona, they are poor almost. They are financially bankrupt. They were not even allowed to buy some players a few markets ago, and they said Barcelona, they gave money to everyone. In Bayern, we take care of our own business. We have to start developing more people, more players in the youth academy. We have to use it more, and we are careful with our money, because it's not coming from under the rock. It's not coming from water, from oil, and all that conversation. So I think it was a very clear message of the Bayern president, because at the time he was asked why Bayern is not competing more times to win the Champions League, investing 200 million, 300 million, like all the big clubs do. And he said, yeah, we have 6 Champions League. We never had to spend 300 or 400 million euros in players in one season. Take a look at Liverpool. They spent 450 million euros or pounds this year. What did Adam Slot team win?
Well, next season. Next season.
Next season. I've heard this. I always listen to this music. Next season we'll do it, like Arsenal, 20 years from now. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Arsenal will do it
yeah.
in a few days' time, not next season. They'll do it in a few
20
days'
years
time.
after, 20 years after investing. Yeah, but it's a big
Let's
discussion. I think
let's stick
Bundesliga,
let's stick
fortunately, has a lot of young kids. A lot of young kids.
yeah, let's stick with these young kids. I mean, the big name, the most famous youngster and the most famous African player is Jan Diomande of the Ivory Coast and of RB Leipzig. He's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. 12 goals this season. And we're looking forward to seeing him at the World Cup,
The World
Jan
Cup, yeah.
Diomande.
Yeah.
Said El Malla of Cologne, 12 goals too, which is amazing. Leonard Karl of Bayern, I already mentioned his name. And we've got even a 16-year-old Luis Lemke of HSV Hamburg. 16 years old, Hamburg's youngest ever player. Another 16-year-old this season, Linus Günther of Union Berlin. And there's an American called Mattis Albert, 16 years old, and he made his debut for Borussia Dortmund. Kenneth Eichhorn, 16. He's at Hertha Berlin in the capital. So quite a few youngsters coming through. And by the way, Leipzig leading the way in the Bundesliga, giving over 3,000 minutes to under 20 players, yeah? Now, of course, there are only 56 professional clubs in Germany, because they've got 3 divisions now. In England, there are 92 professional clubs. So they've got more opportunities to bring the youngsters through there, because they've got 4 leagues. So we've mentioned
But
the
the quality is
incredible
not there,
rise of the
Alex.
teenagers. Sorry?
But the quality in English youngsters is not there. Sorry, it's in Germany. It's not in England. That's why Germany is a 4-time world champion and England is 1-time world champion. That is a consequence. That we
Don't
always have
forget
this
France.
conversation.
Don't forget France, who
Of
bring
course,
through the most young players and the best young players in Europe. It's just amazing, the amount of youngsters who come from Stade Rennes and from Reims and
yeah.
from all the smaller clubs in France. They are flooding the Bundesliga. They are flooding the Premier League. And these aren't big names. These are highly talented youngsters who come to the Bundesliga from France, who come to the Premier League from France. I think they must take a lot of credit. Just one quick word. We've got a big final coming up this week. The Europa League, Aston Villa against Freiburg. Who's the favourite for you there?
Well, that's not difficult. Unai Emery is the favorite to win, not Aston Villa. Unai Emery, the master of Europa League finals. Unai Emery only lost one. Imagine in Arsenal.
What a coach, Unai Emery. Yeah, doesn't get enough credit. Unai Emery. Interesting to see three top Spanish coaches, Unai Emery, Mikel Arteta, and of course, Luis Enrique, who we spoke about a few days ago. Three, and we mustn't forget the man himself, Pep Guardiola, who won the FA Cup for the third time with Manchester City.
But sorry, Alex,
So,
Arteta doesn't sit at the table in this conversation. Way apart. He's in the same
wait.
restaurant, but he
Yeah.
sits next to the exit door. He doesn't sit next
Well,
to the kitchen. Yeah.
we'll talk next week. It might look completely different then.
Of course, he has Premier League. Pep Guardiola destroyed Premier League 4 times in a row, six or 7 in 9 or 10 years. There's no question. Unai Emery 4 Europa League, 3 with Sevilla, 1 with Villarreal, who never thought they would do it. Only lost with Arsenal. And Luis Enrique, 2-time Champions League winner, built with money, but built this Paris Saint-Germain with more wonder kids, more anonymous players coming from Portugal, from Spain, and releasing Messi, Mbappe, Neymar. Built a very good squad. Arteta, come on, he already spent over 1.5 billion pounds to win 2 domestic cups and to try to win 1 Premier League. He sits at the table next to the kids, not next
Don't
to the
forget
grown-ups.
Guardiola
Sorry.
yesterday. Congratulations to Pep Guardiola winning the FA Cup with Manchester City
Again,
for the third time in his
41
career.
titles.
The FA Cup,
41 titles.
not bad at all, Pep. So plenty to
Not
look
bad.
forward to, Antonio. Plenty to look forward to in the coming days.
Definitely. See you next time, and thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe.